Commissioners to order. Start with pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You've all got a copy of the minutes of the preceding meeting. Is there any additions or corrections?
Mr. President, if there are no amendments or corrections, I move that it be accepted as presented. Second.
Then moved and second, we accept the minutes of the preceding meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll start with the reports of the department heads. Mr. Appel has to leave early, so we'll put him on first. Mr. Appel?
Just as you guys are aware, the Howard Price versus the Fayette County Board of Commissioners is set for oral argument on Thursday. Supreme Court, I'm going to be attending, and I'll report back to you guys afterward how it goes.
Okay.
And I have the contracts for the construction of this, and I'll be reviewing those and getting back to you on those.
Okay. Anything further?
No, I have nothing further. Unless
Anybody?
anyone have any questions?
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Highway Director, Jay Haviland.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, you know I've been on vacation for the last 2 weeks, so I can relay to you what they've done while I was off. They were
We've talked
cutting
about that
trees.
too. We've talked about you being on vacation too.
Oh, well. But they've been trimming trees and berming roadsides, and they've they finished up their patch machines. Union County's not putting any more oil in their tank over there for the season. So we're getting ready to put them up. We'll clean them up, get them all ready, and put them back in storage up at Ford Farm up there, at the animal shelter. And we'll just patch with cold mix the rest of the year.
Okay.
That's all I have. Oh, we do have we had an issue come up on 2 of the new trucks, on the tandems, where the bed cylinder bolts onto the frame, or not bolts on, it's welded. The saddle that sits on the frame, the welds are breaking on it, so they got to go back to New Carlisle to the bed designer up there to fix them, and we're in the process of getting them. They're supposed to come pick them up and take them back, and then bring them back to us.
But shouldn't be a lengthy process, should it?
Shouldn't be, probably a couple of days on each truck, but they're gonna take both trucks up there and then do them and just bring them both back at the same time.
Okay.
So that just make it short 2 trucks, but we've got the old trucks there and we can pick up the slack with that.
And they're covering the cost, right? They're covering the cost?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all we want to get rid of that. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Jay. Maintenance, Bill Gray.
Morning, gentlemen. Morning. Let's have a couple things. We fired the boiler last Wednesday, and I'm letting it run. So far, it looks good, but I'm going to let it run this week. Possibly the end of this week or first of next, I'll put the ceiling and everything back together. We'll get rid of the scaffolding and everything up there. So hopefully, we'll be okay there. Just time will tell. When we run this winter, we should know. The other thing I had was the elevator in the annex is down again. I gave one of these. I gave one of these to you. This makes 3 times this thing went down. We put a ton of money in it. This one, we just put the shaft in there on June 24th of 2013 at a cost of $4,632. This problem now is it's the shaft again. It's not what they fixed. It's slid over again, and it's from weight being put on the elevator. It has to be. There's no other excuse for it.
So it's the elevator being overloaded.
There's been too much put in it because the elevator is not used that much for individual use. I mean, for people.
It's not being used that much for it to break that much, except
Right.
if it was just passengers.
It's an old elevator. It's not going to take a ton of weight. I mean, it's not going to do it. No piston type elevator. We've replaced door detectors, which don't sound like much, but you're looking at $2,000 for door detectors. And let's see, that was on That was in 2012. May of 2012, we replaced those, and in June, we replaced the packing and everything. So you're looking at about $6,621 we put in it already, not counting then
So are
another
you saying,
2,000.
Bill, that the problem is that it's being used as a freight elevator instead of a passenger elevator?
Yes, that's that's what I think. I'm gonna talk to him this time. Talked to him last time. He said, yes, weight was a factor because it broke the actual bolt that holds the piston. And you don't see that happen. And that's from getting too much weight on one side of the elevator. As it goes up, it just snapped it right off.
Well, as you say, we can't stand to be doing that every other month.
That's a lot of money. And it's down right now, so I gotta have your guys' okay to even go ahead and repair it this time.
Well, the problem is, I don't know if we have a choice.
I don't think we do, because I
We don't
think
have
it's,
a,
I think it's
for
handicap access.
the handicapped people, I mean, that's the reason we put a $9 million extension on this courthouse.
Exactly,
We couldn't get the second
and with the
floor.
annex, all you got up there is probation. That's all, it's the only department that would even use the elevator.
The simple problem is that we're providing a space for a service, and the taxpayers have to keep footing the bill every couple of months to fix this elevator. And I don't think we can keep doing that. I think something's gonna have
It's
to change.
getting expensive, it's getting to be a lot of money, just for the elevator.
Yeah.
So what are you suggesting?
I suggest we fix it, but we're gonna have to, I think we've made the suggestion of before not to use the elevator as a freight elevator for the food pantry, but they didn't heed the word. And we're gonna have to do something about that, but we're gonna have to fix the elevator.
we don't have a choice but to fix the elevator, but we need to address the problem of what's causing it. Which means we need to talk to a representative from the food pantry and see if there's someplace else that they can locate to where we won't be incurring these kinds of costs.
There's surely someplace in this town with all the empty space we have that
Yeah, I would think so.
they could be on the ground
On
floor.
the ground floor where they wouldn't have to use an elevator, they could.
Well, why don't we arrange a meeting with the director of that food pantry and see if we can get something settled.
Okay.
That's all I have.
You need a motion to
Fix the elevator.
We need to motion to fix the elevator and to address the situation of what's causing the problem.
so moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we authorize Bill Gray to have the elevator fixed and that we address the problem of the cause of the elevator being broken all the time.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I'll make sure I got some documentation from the repair guys this time too. I got it last time, so I'll make sure I get it this time. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Ben?
Good morning. Before you guys, I've placed 2 quotes that represent the last 17 computers that we need to purchase to move everybody off of Windows XP onto Windows 7. The top quote is my recommendation as the best quote for $9,142.25. That includes 16 desktops and 1 laptop. The second quote I have from you, the total was $9,963.83.
So what is your wishes?
We have, I wouldn't presume to override your knowledge and expertise in this area, Mr. Houston. So I will make a motion to approve the open quote from globalgoved.com for $9,142.25.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the quote from Global. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. I will update you on the surveillance project. We do have cameras going up slowly. If I can be blunt, it's going very slow because of everything else that I attend to. I probably overextended myself thinking that I could do this one on my own completely. Just to give you an idea, for the month of October, I received 153 phone calls for support and at least 43 email requests for support from the county alone. So, and that's probably a pretty typical month for us. So,
And sometimes when you go to do these emails or answer these calls, it's not just a quick fix. Sometimes it can take a whole day for you to wire out the problem.
sure.
Figure out what it
To
is.
give you an example, last Thursday, one phone call ended up being 2.5 hours removing a virus. So the time adds up. One of the thoughts that I had was to expedite the surveillance project would be to contract out the actual wiring part. That's the bulk of the time. We do have $2,000 contingency left in that edit money that was approved that we could use for that purpose. But I need to know your wishes on moving forward with it.
I would support that. I think getting these cameras up is important, and getting them up as soon as we can. I would entertain a motion that we allow Ben to contract with whoever he can find is capable up to whatever he has left in that budget we had for the cameras, which is about $2,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We allow them to contract for help to get the cameras installed and go ahead and get them up and get them running. The second thing, I've talked to Ben, and the cameras on the outside is going to require a bucket truck or something to get up there. The highway department has a bucket truck which they could use, but we need to authorize the highway department to assist Ben in putting those cameras up on the outside.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We allow the highway department to use their bucket truck to assist Ben in installing the cameras on the exterior of the building. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Cameras going out.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anything else that you guys need from me? That's all I have for you.
Not on the minute. I think we do need to address sometime the workload you've got. Looks to me like we're gonna have to, if we can find the money, we need some additional help for the IT department,
It would be much appreciated.
because we are getting behind.
Yeah. Right now, I'm about 2.5 to 3 weeks behind on trouble tickets.
Yeah,
So,
we need to get this where we're halfway current. You know,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
yes, sir. All
Okay,
right.
thanks, Ben.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Council Representative, Shirley, you got anything for us?
Nothing.
Community Corrections, Michelle Dudley.
I've ran into problems with the ACA guidelines on the 28-hour max for the work week, the ordinance that went through. Due to the way we schedule 8 hours, if there's any way that could be changed to 56 for the pay period, what I've tried to do to come in line with that is work my guys 24 hours one week and 32 the next, which is still 56. But, so I'll be in guidelines with your ordinance if that could be changed. My problem is if I cut their hours anymore and cut them to 24, I'm not gonna have any help. I've lost 4 people in the last 5 to 6 weeks, and I've lost 2 prior to that because of me cutting their hours now from 32 a week just to 24 and 32. There's another local business that's soliciting my help, and
We don't know how they can do that either if they're hiring part-time.
they're giving them more than 40 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because the penalty phase doesn't go into effect until 2015 or what, but I need to get that changed if we can so I can stay within the counties.
We had this discussion the other day, Michelle, and to tell you the truth, I just haven't had time to find what the answer to that is. but we will in the next week. Another solution I mentioned to you is maybe if you have the funds of hiring a full-time person where we take a big load off where they're not going from here to the next business or whoever gives them a nickel more or an hour more, you know.
I am gonna pursue that
Okay.
through council, but I still need that to read if there's any way 56 in the
We'll see if
last.
we can get that done, and we'll try and get you an answer here in the next.
And
in the
there
next few
will be
days.
occasions where somebody's gonna go over a few hours. I have mandated training. I'm trying to run my department on part-time help. And I have mandated training, and sometimes I have to send those guys to 40-hour-a-week school,
Yeah, I
which
understand.
I can adjust that later down the line.
Well, sure,
So
the
it's still
laws
gonna
will allow us to
average,
do that. I
but
mean,
there are gonna be times that they go over that, and, you know, the schedule has became a full-time job for me since July.
Right.
It's a wreck right now. I can't get, I posted it on the Work One website, and I still can't get qualified applicants. I've done everything I could do. I went to the surrounding counties and asked to see their applications.
And you was telling the surrounding counties all pay more than we pay, right?
That's a big problem. Even Union County starts at more than we do here, and they're have always been one of the lowest paid in the state.
Yeah.
But you're talking a $6,000 difference even on full-time to start here at our jail, because I start facility officers full-time at the same pay rate as the jail starts, $22,241.
Uh-huh.
It's a $6,000 pay difference going east or west on starting pay. And I know that's been a problem at the jail too, keeping help, because they get snatched up.
That was the starting pay for a jail officer when I was still sheriff.
Yeah, and it's still the starting pay, and that's the problem.
On your mandatory education, how many hours a year are they required?
It's not set down into hours per year like it is on jail and road
Police
deputies.
officers, yeah.
It is just that DOC, it's a requirement of the grant, that I give training in motivational interviewing, the IRAS, all of that is required by the grant. I have to stay in guidelines, of course, with the grant. If we don't get that, everything's EBP now, evidence-based practices, and it's new, and all my staff has to be trained in EBP. So there's no set hours yet, but we're not, just like I had training scheduled for this week that I've had to postpone just because everybody has to have it. So I'm trying to get all these positions filled so I don't have to pull somebody in and send them through that class, just one person. So I've had to postpone that, but I'm gonna do it next week and the next week in 2 groups. But I'm gonna have, it's gonna be a 4-hour training in addition to what they're working. So,
You said you posted on the Work One website. Have you ever went down there? They have a billboard down there where you just, I don't know, you put up a paper and people kind
I
of sketch
haven't.
over what, you know.
I haven't put it on there. They've sent me 70 applications,
Oh.
but it was for a male under the PREA Act. I have to have a male back there because the opening's in the dorm area. And they sent me, probably half of them are female. 90% of them came from Newcastle. Are you gonna drive from Newcastle to Connersville for $9.62 an hour for 16 to 20 hours a week?
Probably not.
Third shift and weekends.
No.
And if I remember what you told me correctly, some of the applications were some of your former occupants.
4 that I've had within the last 6 months applied for a job there.
Well, they know the drill, right?
They do, yeah. So, I can't hire a convicted felon. I'm not gonna hire somebody that's just got off the program. So I have gotten 2 applicants hired within the past 2 weeks, So I'm still sorting through them. I'm trying to find the right person so I don't have to continually go through this. But I can't keep a hold of them because they get training here. They can go either direction, any direction around us, and get a job at $6,000 more a year with benefits.
And also, you have moved some of your administrative staff into positions that are usually done by these people by the officers that work the floor. So you are trying to cover, make ends meet, but there's only so far you can stretch. Is
Yes,
that
my
correct?
assistant director and my facility supervisor are now working in the dorm day shift. And I've dropped my day shift people part-time down to third shift until I can get these positions filled. So I'm doing everything I can do, but I'm still hitting the 28-hour block. I need a little bit of flexibility there. If it would just read the 56 so I can do the 24-32.
We'll see if we can, I'll try and get that answer in the next couple of days. I mean, whatever we can do legally, we will do, but,
All right.
okay, thanks,
Thanks.
Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Jay left, didn't he? Jay?
Oh, there he is.
There
He's
he
over
is.
here.
You give me that letter from the,
I can't hear you back
you
there.
give me that letter out there.
I give it to Zane, and
Has Jerry looked at that? Does
Yes,
he
I
know-
gave him a copy of
Does
it,
he
too.
know what we have to do, or,
Right now, you just gotta, somebody just has to represent us at the hearing, I can go to the hearing as well.
okay, okay. Mail. Wycom contracts, clerk.
Yeah, this is just a renewal of the contract for their check signer for December 13 to December 14. Just needs to be signed. It's the same amount as it was last year.
It's a maintenance contract, so I guess we need a motion to approve the signing of this contract, which is just a renewal of what we've had.
Sorry to ask, but what is it for?
It's a check signer up in
Check
the
signer in
clerk's
the
office.
clerk's office.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So moved.
Second.
Okay, moving second to approve the renewal of the maintenance contract with Wycom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Do we have any other mail?
Yeah, we also have this from Purdue. Again, it's just a renewal of the contract with Purdue and Fayette County.
And this is the same amount we always,
Is it the same amount, Cindy? I didn't look at this one.
No, you increased it, it's, I think, $750 more
Okay.
than last year, but you approved that in the budget. It's just, it's a formality that,
it is in the budget then for this,
Yeah.
for this amount? Okay. So if it is, then I would entertain that we approve the contract.
Mr. President, I'll move to accept the extension of contractual services agreement between Purdue and the government of Fayette County as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the contract with Purdue for the extension office. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Is that it on the mail?
Yeah.
Okay. Old business, we have got quotes on saw borings for the ground down where we're proposing to build a highway garage. I think we've got three, I think, in. very, very close together. I would suggest that you authorize me or Frank or one of us to contract with one of these. We're getting ready to hire an architect down here, and I think we should work with the architect on doing those borings. So, would be my suggestion. We just authorize one of us to go ahead and contract with one, and once we get a contract, architect hired and decide with him who we should go with. They're all relatively the same price.
I would move, Mr. President, that we allow you to do that. Congratulations.
You know,
Second.
I'm looking for something else to do. These are all the figures was in $3,000, $3,500 somewhere's in there, which might go up a little bit. There's been some talk of the county does not own the ground in front of the highway garage. That belongs to Mr. Wells. That would be probably the best place to build this garage if we could get this ground bought down there at a reasonable price. So probably we'll have the soil borings done on our piece of ground and down there, and then determine where's the best place for the money to build this. Next thing, awarding a contract for the architect for the highway garage. We've taken, we've received bid, or talked to architects last week, I think it was. All of them are very qualified. You've had time to study their qualifications. Do you have any decision on it?
I rather like actually both companies had their stuff together. They were extremely knowledgeable, and they had pictures of finished projects, which were rather large projects. But I rather like the one from Wayne County. Number one, they're a neighboring county. Number two, they have finished projects such as gymnasiums at Wernley and other such projects. And I would move with the commission, with the board's permission, to ask that they be accepted as our architect. The name of the company is Mays.
I'll second that.
Been moved and secondly, hire Mays as the architect for the proposed highway garage. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the ADA transition plan. We have two different people here that want to talk about that and propose their company. First is Stephen Rubin from Strand Associates.
So Bill Hawkins. Bill Hawkins. Steve is on it, Lieutenant.
Okay.
Well, we've sent a proposal letter in. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sent a proposal letter into to Jerry. We had one of our engineers that helps us with these plans come down and tour all the facilities and get an idea of what type of work would need to be done. And we did our justification based off of that, and sent a scope of all the activities we do, of having people out here measuring and doing all the checklists, and then putting together the transition plan that would have a priority list and costs associated with the improvements that may need to be done. And the fee that we had come to was $38,000. So, if you had a chance to look at the proposal letter, if you had any questions on that.
I really haven't had a chance to go through it in depth. Now, when do we have to have this plan done?
There's a lot of debate about that. Right now, as far as
Well, to keep out of jail, let's put it that way.
It was originally as part of Americans with Disabilities Act in 1992. I think they're just looking at it a little bit more to get people to actually move and do these plans. They are, I don't think that they're coming to look for anybody at this point.
You might explain to the public here what it is we're talking about.
Well, the ADA transition plan is to look at all of the facilities, public facilities that a city or a county has. So the courthouse here, access for people with disabilities and all disabilities, sight, hearing, and looking at not only the hard brick and mortar facilities of buildings, but also and sidewalks and curb ramps, but also websites, things like that. Hearing ability here in the commissioner's room that someone with hearing disabilities would be able to hear. So that all needs to be taken or looked at to see that all the requirements are being met, that people with disabilities have the ability to have full participation in public events, and that they're able to fully participate in everything that everyone else does.
Barton, I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
something to add to that.
Okay.
Yesterday, I opened up the NDOT grant application through the Indiana Department of Transportation. That is one of the questions on the application now. Do you have an ADA transition plan? And if not, when do you expect to have one and have it completed?
Okay. So if we get somebody hired, that pretty much will solve the problem with NDOT then, right?
We can put a projected date of when they think their completion date would be, yes.
And when do you think that would be?
For us, I think in our proposal letter, we had, if we were able to have gotten started on November 1st, it would be February, so a few months to be able to come out and do the field work, collect the data, and then bring that back, and we do sketches of everything, the bathrooms that we look at, all the facilities, do sketches of it to determine whether it meets or not, and then if it does not, then develop the plan to fix it and associate costs with it, and then that becomes part of the plan as well.
Okay. Do we have any other questions of this gentleman?
So basically, you're trying to see if the ADA requirements that were put into the architectural plans for this building meet current specs. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
you'd be surprised.
Well, it's not just this building, it's every
It's
building.
it's anything that has a public program. So if you've got a building that you're bringing
Town with sidewalks,
right, the sidewalks that are under county jurisdiction, not
That's
the
right.
ones that are under the city jurisdiction, but sidewalks and curb ramps, things like that. Anything where you're having the public come to it needs
it's
to.
anything that the county owns, whether it's ADA compliant, is what
Right.
you're saying.
I have a handicapped mother and grandson, so I'm 100% for it. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Butler Furman Super also has presented a plan to us. They will address it now. Who's going to talk? Mike, you?
Go along with Mike Mang from our company and Dave Meals. They're going to do the speaking and
Okay.
pass those up to those guys.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Good morning.
We sent a preliminary proposal along to Jerry, and I dropped one off to Barton. We needed to get in the jail before we could get some last few numbers together, and thanks to the sheriff and Barton for setting that up, but we went through the jail, David and I did a week ago, David?
Yes, 2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. So we've got our numbers together, and to kind of expound on the previous conversation, there's a few more things to it than just, the public access and the sidewalks. There's also programs and services. So as a government agency, your personnel need to know how to deal with people with ADA requirements, such as the blind and the deaf and folks in wheelchairs. And as part of our proposal, there's some training in there with your folks. We just had an incident in Tippecanoe County last week that David can kind of tell you a little bit about. But for instance, a security officer took leg leg irons off of a handicapped fellow as he was coming through security, and that violated his rights. And it opened him up to a lawsuit. So there's little things like that when it comes to programs and services, on top of the barriers that we look at in the buildings and things that were talked about earlier, that it takes a couple meetings with staff to get those things out on the table and get them properly trained. We have the credentials and the staff to do that. David, do you have anything to add?
I would like to explain a little bit about the process. It's a multiple part process. And the reason we're doing this is because it was a requirement of the 1990 ADA. And what was required back then was for all municipalities, state and local governments, and public entities that were covered under the ADA to go through their existing facilities and remove existing barriers in accordance with the regulations of the ADA. They had exactly 1 year to go through their facilities. If they couldn't complete the requirement, if they couldn't bring their facility into compliance within 12 months, they had to come up with a timeline that laid everything out, and basically the timeline for the transition plan has only been written once. The date of completion was written once, it never changed. It was January 26, 1993, so that's the deadline to have your transition plan completed. January 26, 93. So we find ourselves 20 years later in a situation where the ADA has not only been around for 20 years, but it's been expelled upon, and there are now items covered in the ADA that weren't previously part of it, such as your parks, your swimming pools, your golf courses, now your detention facilities. And all of these elements, as they become part of the ADA, were required to be looked at as they become part of the ADA, because you're covered under it. In addition to that, the 2010 changes brought along enforcement for the first time and really give grit and teeth to the other civil rights legislation, because please keep in mind, this is a civil rights and not a building code issue. So it's not really an architect's job to ensure that you're ADA compliant. It's not a building code. It's a civil rights code. And so because of that's the very reason that the question on your questionnaire for the Federal Highway Department is asking, are you Title VI compliant? There is no Title VI to the ADA. What that's asking is, are you Title VI compliant with the ABA, the Architectural Barriers Act, which has been around since 1968. And that required all federal entities to comply with these accessibility requirements for their buildings and their programs, services, activities, and people that they contract with. So because you receive federal funding, you have to comply with the ABA, the Architectural Barriers Act, which has different accessibility requirements, which will tell you your inner office equipment will have requirements, your computers, your software, your web pages, in addition to what's required by the ADA. So what I would tell you is it's a multi-component task at hand. And our approach to this will not be in 2 months. It should not be in 2 months. It should be done properly, right from the first time. So you're looking at starting a 20-year-old requirement, and it's beyond barrier removal, because once you have a building that's been built and it's been had an addition made to it, there's also this requirement under Title III of the ADA called a continuing obligation. And that says that even though you've removed your barriers, you have a continuing obligation to ensure compliance with what's being built across the board with your facilities. So it's more than just a barrier removal that will be required for your facilities, and we have a very good understanding of these requirements and elements such as training law enforcement for effective communication, how to deal with a person with a disability if they was to come across them in the field, pulling them over, having an accident. Elements like this. It's so ever-reaching when the program and service evaluations come to play. There will be interdepartment policies and decisions that will have to be made. And these are the hard decisions to be made. The buildings are your easy elements that you can see, touch, and feel. But it's understanding that these requirements will require even the tow truck services that are on rotation with your police department to have accessible facilities at their locations. And if you don't, the ADA will tell you you can't contract with them. So these are elements that we understand well, and we're prepared to cover the county in accordance with these requirements if given the opportunity. So thank you for listening to us, and we appreciate your time.
Well, from what you're saying, then these requirements change, so does this require an update to this plan on a periodic basis?
This plan will be an ever-living plan, never to go away. What's happening here is with enforcement with the ADA, they understand that this is a civil rights issue that was intended to be followed suit by local and state governments when the federal government started doing things themselves under the ADA. They figured everyone would follow suit, and that didn't happen. So this will never go away. It will only be expelled upon. And for instance, what we have now currently, beyond what's currently required under the ADA, we have proposed rulemakings for elements such as your sidewalks, which is called the PRO Act, your right-of-way elements. The ADA doesn't cover facilities within the right-of-way, so we have proposed rulemakings that will cover that. And when that becomes law, you're required to become compliant with that. That's a little bit of
So then we will have to continue to update this plan on a periodic basis?
each and every year, yes, sir. Each and every year, and it will require your departments to work together as such so that everyone will understand this. There will be hard decisions to be made, but each and every
So
department.
that means we have to hire a firm such as yours every year then to advise us on what we need to do to update this?
Until you understand it in-house, all on your own, and a municipality your size, I would suggest at some point we'll be looking at hiring a full-time position to understand what's involved here.
I can expound on that a little bit. You're also required to have an ordinance to name an ADA coordinator. So we'll help you with that ordinance and help you find somebody that's currently on staff maybe to fill that role. And that's part of, I believe, the questionnaire that Diana was talking about.
Then that person should be able to keep us current on it.
We will help
continuing
educate
basis
them,
after
and
that.
yes, hopefully that person can stay up to date. I'm looking at least 12 different rules and laws that are out there that they need to stay up, and as a matter of fact, the state is just adopting the PRO-AG that he was just talking about as their standard for the curb ramps and those type of things. So that's upcoming, we understand, probably about July.
And I think it might be worth saying our company is working with another company out west on the national checklist for the sidewalks for all municipalities.
Which sidewalks is not a big concern, not a big problem for the county, but
Certainly
we
not.
don't have any.
No,
Right.
cities and towns, it's an
Right.
entirely different issue. But our understanding of these codes we believe that we understand them very well. We're not going to tell you we know everything there is to know, but we are a team devoted and to finding the answers and to covering our clients as best we can. And
So-
we feel we do a very good job of that.
Like the highway garage that we've been talking about, that would be something that you would have to look at and go, is it compliant with ADA rules and regulations? And that's stuff that has to be put into that plan.
That's correct, and that's something that we would be prepared to do in the plan review process. As I understand, you're building a new building?
Yeah, hopefully.
Indeed.
So we left that kind of off the list, knowing the shape of that one. I've been out there with Jay a few times, and we
It's
can
pretty
look.
much been decided that was gonna have to go.
So we would look
But
at the
then if
plan.
we build a new one, I would assume whatever architect draws up this plan should have the knowledge of making it compliant.
And if I may speak on that element to that, I would say this year alone, we have had Walmart change their national design. The Meyer have looked at their national design, believing that these large architectural firms who are doing the nationwide model plans have an understanding, whereas they are trying to build in areas that we have clients, we're representing our clients, we're making changes that are changing national models. In both McDonald's, I don't know that they've changed national models, but McDonald's, Taco Bell, Dairy Queen, the Sisters Hospital, 2 years old in Lafayette, non-compliant restrooms in the patient recovery rooms. So, it's a 2-year-old building. These things are happening every day. And again, what I would tell you is, if you hire an architect and assume that he will know all of this, and assume that his errors and omissions covers it, it's not a building code issue. These are not building code issues, they're civil rights issues. So it's beyond their spectrum, I believe.
Okay. So allow me to ask you a hypothetical, let me put you on the spot.
Please.
You've reviewed the jail.
Yes, sir.
And hypothetically, you find that the ADA access cells are too small, or they need major overhaul, which would require an architect, engineering, which would reduce the space for existing non-ADA inmates, etc. Am I following along here correctly?
Yes, sir.
That's a great question too. There is a level that this gets down to an undue burden because of cost. You know, you get into an old courthouse and you've got to remove a structural component to make a door wider. That's an undue burden. Okay, having these listed in the report as such, and if somebody does file a complaint that goes to the Department of Justice, and you can pull that report out and say, we looked at that barrier, but this is why it's not been replaced. And there's some decisions to make along the way as we find those, you know, not just barriers, but maybe some programs and services that getting these in the report and saying, yeah, we identified those and we understand why this person's complaining, but this is why we can't change it, and having that documented.
Okay. You're very straightforward with your answer. I appreciate that.
And what I would suggest is our reports will come through your facilities with a fine-tooth comb and understand, you know, you will probably have a lot to do. We're 20 years behind the mark here trying to catch up, and now we've got new elements that we've got to comply with in addition to the old 20-year requirement. So the work task can be monumental and overwhelming.
If it comes into an expense, into much of an expense at all, we're getting back to this undue hardship because we just plain don't have money to do a lot of.
We'll have those listed out and costs put with them, and we anticipate this taking 6 months for us to get through the report. We would come to every commissioner's meeting and make a report on progress, and have various meetings along the way with the programs and services people too. So we want you to feel part of it, and we understand that you're going to see some things on the report that are going to scare you. We guys got to get them listed out. Part of our process is getting these in a priority list where they make the most sense to look at first, allow for budgeting and that type of thing. We understand where your money comes from, and you've got a lot of places to spend it. So
yeah, we believe there are elements that can and should be done in-house. For instance, one of the elements of determining price for changes, for alterations as required as a result of our findings. You know, I think that, you know, several of these items may be able to be done in-house with your maintenance group, with, you know, possibly somebody that's in charge of that building. You know, there's areas where we hope that you would work with us if we're the chosen firm, that it is built into the requirements for the entity to understand. You know, in other words, it's not just a line item that we're going to come in and do for you and then walk away. It's going to be something you'll be required to know and understand well within your own departments in order to continue the work that we begin for you after we leave.
Well, the other thing is that a year ago they had to let go of 11 people in the county. So, you know, hiring a full-time person is probably out of the question. The other problem is that, like you had just mentioned, the maintenance director. You know, if the maintenance director were to take classes and so on and so forth to actually, you know, someone can bring him up to speed on, hey, this is what you have to have, and some things can be done in-house and some things can't. But the majority of it, you know, as far as hiring someone is as far as a full-time person to keep you compliant compliant would have to be someone who's already existing in the county, that's already being paid. They just have to do double duty.
And that's been the case in most places we work, so.
That's absolutely been the case with every one of our clients, and we do our best to teach them and educate them, and oftentimes more than not, what's revealed through this process is that, again, it's civil rights. So it's not a building code, and, you know, if nothing is done, because they have enforcement now, we're going to withhold federal funding across the board. So you can have, as we've seen in the past, a client that wants us to come in and work with them and create this transition plan, but then there's an element of a department that doesn't work that well and says, well, it's on them to take care of it. They need to take care of that issue. Well, if the Department of Justice comes in because of a complaint in that department, they don't just look at that department. They look at the entire entity as a whole, and they don't look at whether or not that department had the money or not. They look at whether or not the entity as a whole had the money to cover it. So that's the severity. That's what's at risk, and it's really the nuts and bolts of it.
So I would guess from that then, if we don't have the ADA plan, that this would go down to even the federal funding we get on our bridges and stuff. Isn't that correct?
At every level, yes, sir. Your highway department, your jail, your jail could lose funding. You know what? Your courthouse.
Right now, they've just been asking, Jerry, I think Jerry's filled out a quality assurance form with NDOT the last 2 years, and on there, it's asking if you have the transition plan, and it's asking some other Title VI type things. You're an equal opportunity employer. You know, a lot of those Title VI things are just required because you're a government entity anyway, and they're just making sure that you're aware of them by asking the question, and then the same question that Diana alluded to has been on that quality assurance form for your funding. So there's nobody that's had funding pulled at this time in the state of Indiana that I know of, but
it's getting ready to
they
happen.
keep asking, so.
It will happen sometime.
We're 20 years behind the mark, and there are entities that still aren't willing to take the step to try and reach a level of access for their constituents. So unfortunately, it's just it's still viewed as that there exists a grandfather clause, which I can tell you there does not. There is no such thing as a grandfather clause for the ADA. Nobody is grandfathered in. There are two elements that may not be covered under it, but it's we could discuss in length as to whether or not they would be covered. But church groups, religious organizations, and then private entities such as an Elks Club that charges private fees. But once they rent out for one event, then they are then covered. Let's say they rent their facility out for a wedding event, then they're covered under the ADA. And so would a church if they had a preschool inside or a wedding. So.
Well, I would suggest, given the importance of getting this plan together, we've got a lot of information this morning from two different people. I would suggest that we study these proposals and maybe get a hold of them again if we have any questions, and then trying to come to a decision at our next meeting.
It's fine with me, Mr. President.
I'll second that.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Social media policy. What are we talking about here?
That was,
Huh?
Have you had that on there?
that
I
was,
don't know.
we can just go with that.
Okay.
We can just pass that.
I don't know what that is.
She had that listed in the book. I don't know.
Approval extension contract, we've already done that, didn't we? Grant administration for housing rehab. Donna, is that you?
It is. We opened up an advertisement for requests for proposals for grant administration services on the housing grant that Star Development had come to you earlier in the year about proposing. We received one proposal today, was from Star Development. all that was.
Okay.
So if the commissioners would just accept that proposal, give us permission to go ahead and negotiate a contract with them. All of the fees of this will come out of the actual grant, so.
So we don't have, the proposal doesn't have the cost of it.
No, there's no cost involved. It's just, like any type of engineering, it is you have to negotiate a fee.
Okay.
Okay?
So you need a motion from us?
Yes, I do, please.
And so you're looking for an administrator for the housing rehab program?
Correct.
Which is started up. That's what we're talking about.
And then the funds come out of the grant.
And they have done this before
Oh, yeah,
for us.
yeah.
If you recommend it, I'm for it. So moved.
Well, they have done a good job of it.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve negotiation with Star Development for the grant administration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. EMA quarter report. Mr. Ellis?
Yes, sir.
Morning.
Morning.
Just want to bring you up to date on what's been going on. My area coordinator was here the other day looking at the annual review. This is a process of assessment for the EMA that goes through the activities that are required by the state and the federal government. That timeline is June 30th of 2013 to July 14th, or July 30th of 2014. Within that timeline, you have to meet a minimum to allow funds to keep coming through. We're in November and I've already passed that number, so that's a good thing. We're ahead of schedule there. We have some required activities and plan updates. One issue that came up was suicide. Frank, I think you were in the meeting that came up with the safety committee. It's also come up in other times. I contacted Alice Miles, who's with the state. She does a lot of training for that, and it's particularly sensitive to me because I've been counseling two people who are the sons of a murder-suicide that happened in Muncie a couple months ago. They're task force members, and they've been going through a pretty rough time. I'm at the point that I've got to refer one to a psychiatrist. I can't help them anymore. But that is something that Alice is working on a schedule for everybody to look at that, to add it to training. She's getting logistics together for me now. I can present that to you for your future investigation as to where to go with that. Going on with courthouse safety, excuse me. The recent changes in the phone system has a side benefit to us. In the courthouse annex building, we have maintenance because the antenna tower farm on top of the roof and the HVAC work that takes place. We have the HVAC people putting ladders up on the side of the building, taking materials up. That opens the door for falling, dropping things on people. And I just happened to look one day and saw this and have a suggestion for you.
Well, I think by OSHA standards that if you're so high off the ground, you're supposed to actually you're supposed to be tied off somewhere.
And I don't want to, I fell out of a tree when I was a little kid. I don't care to ever do that. If you look at the top floor, there's a window and you see a little white block. That's a proposal I'm making. If you look below it, there's a picture of the inside of the electrical room. The square coincides with the white block that would indicate an access doorway that would take you out to the roof. And then you could put a permanent ladder structure to go to the second floor roof from that access, and it would keep you from going up and down, hauling things and pulling things and introducing the possibility of falling. Now, there is a side benefit. If you look at the bottom picture, that terminal block is the old phone system. Now, since Ben put in the new system, that opens up the possibility of the existing wiring could possibly be used for a PA system or something like that. There's no investment opportunity there that would add to the safety and security. So I maybe like a little comment on what you think about that idea.
It's worth thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, the access door there, so there isn't another access point anywhere to get to the, you'd have to have a ladder from top to bottom.
You'd have to go up ladder twice to get to the top roof. And outside of, you know, the food pantry issue with too much weight on the elevator, I don't think the people working on the HVAC would ever be having anything of that nature, that load.
Right.
So they could take items up and would eliminate that hauling up the ladder issue.
As a matter of fact, I think that's who you got in the picture.
Yeah, they are.
Well, an access point is a good idea. I mean, to the simple fact that it cuts down reasons of being, a secondary level. But you could put in a permanent ladder from this level to the second level.
Yes.
Like a set of stairs or something.
Adrian, how close is this block that you put in here to that existing window?
That would be about a foot. I mean, it's,
Okay.
this, basically this wall, that window's right here. But that's, you know, open for suggestion.
Okay.
You could modify that distance any way you want.
Actually, it's not a bad idea.
I come up with it once in a while. No.
I think Bill Gray might like that too.
Save you a headache. I don't know if that's something you want to consider or act on, look for cost on a doorway or something to put in there.
I think we'd rather talk to Bill and just not table the project, but table right now until we get all our ducks lined up.
Understood. Moving on, courthouse emergency plan update. I'm in the midst of doing that, but considering the meetings we've had on safety and some other issues going on, I would like to do this. I would like to establish a meeting with department heads, commissioners, and council to start taking everyone in a phase 2, personally walking the department heads through that plan and looking at suggestions that they feel need to be there to update that, get them totally aware. We seem to be having more problems in the world, and I know recently during the safety meeting there was an outbreak in the courtroom, and 2 officers had to respond to that. We've had situations in probation where a fight broke out and they didn't know what to do, but they had the panic button there and nobody touched it. In any given situation, your training is going to dictate your response, and I think ongoing training needs to be established. I think this is a good start, especially with the issues of safety and everything going on. It would be the department head, commissioner, council level meetings that we could schedule it in a way to have a few people so you didn't have to have a quorum there with both council and commissioner. You could do one commissioner at a time, members of the council, so you could not have to have a quorum. It would not have to be that type of a meeting. And then I think for commissioners and council, I would like to take you through a NIMS class just as an overview, because during the 2013 festival, there were some major problems. And if we don't get a handle on that, we're going to get nailed. We suffered greatly because of it, but other communities who've operated without using NIMS have paid the price.
In South Carolina, there was a factory fire that 9 firemen were killed. OSHA sued that community for $27 million and won. There were 2 firemen that died in the wildfires. Their families sued and got so much money that the state of Iowa had to raise property taxes because there's so few people out there. So that's something I would like to look at. Then once we've had the department heads, commissioner, council aware of that, start taking each department through that. Once that's done, hold a requirement that the state wants, which is a tabletop exercise, that goes through a scenario and puts people in a position where they have to react. There's no blood, there's no foul, there's no injuries, it's all done on a table where those issues are brought up to the forefront, to where you have to react, who is responsible, and it lets people take ownership of that. And that would finalize that in an ongoing training. Basic things that people have to deal with, fires. No one is very aware of what fire extinguisher to use for what, active shooter training, evacuation, tornadoes. Ms. Wise is very aware of tornado safety. A lot of these things need to be drilled into people to the point that it's second nature. So I would like your permission to proceed with that.
Well, I'm going to tell you personally, courthouse safety is on the top of my, it's on the top of my list. I mean, with people, with the sheriff's department having to tackle people in hallways, and the entire courthouse doesn't know about it, or whatnot, so on and so forth. But I mean, it's something we've got to get a handle on and figure it out. You know, I mean, the most of the people that you could ask right now is, hey, where's the nearest fire extinguisher? Oh, I don't think anybody really knows. But, you know, so I don't have a problem with it, you know, as far as getting this going.
You can go ahead and proceed with that.
Okay. Well, that is that, and along the same line, in 2005, the continuity of operations plan was accepted, but there's always been one component missing, a line of succession, which basically indicates if there is a problem, God forbid one of you should be injured, that has to go down the line. Who takes over next? That is spelled out in a memo from Brad Gavin. Brad is the legal counsel for the Department of Homeland Security, and he emailed me the state model. That's the singular page, dual page left in the handout about the line of succession. Running the county, and having said that, there's another component that goes with that, and that goes to preparing the worst case scenario for the county to keep operating. One, we have to have a line of succession that spells out who's going to be able to keep things going in case someone is not available. Two, how to operate. Now, having said that, on the issue of continuity and operations and safety, there are things that we need to look at as far as these departments operate. Being able to operate off-site, having, for lack of better terms, minimal equipment that would allow department heads to keep things going. If you look on the back of that handout, there's a note in red, not for public dissemination. Kind of goes into the details that goes back to security and safety about what department heads should have at a minimum, and then a rundown of the department about who can do what and how they can proceed and keep the business going. That it's one thing to be shut down for a couple of days because of a snow emergency, but it's another thing if a tanker blows up going down Grand Avenue and totally disables the courthouse. So
We're in a hypothetical situation. What you're saying is if there's, you know, we have an active tornado, and nobody can get a hold of the three of us because they don't know if we've been swooped away in it or not. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Basically, and any other, I mean, it seems like shootings are commonplace anymore. I know they had another one last night in a mall. And as it stands right now, there's nothing to prevent someone from walking in this room and opening fire. A full automatic weapon, damn near everybody in this room can be dead. And that opens up the door to how do you keep the county going? If all three of you went to a conference somewhere and God forbid become involved in an accident, you're starting all over again. I mean, basically, the President of the United States and the Vice President never travel together for that reason. That's why they're two Air Force Ones. It's the same, you are the chief executive officers of the county and your protection is paramount. So that line of succession is something that I wish you'd look at. Brad Gavin's, I think, contact information is on there when you want, if you want to talk to him about it. I guess one thing I do need your permission on is moving ahead with the training for the department heads. Setting up that training scenario for them and you on the courthouse safety and procedures. The plan that was written, per se.
Well, and that's really something we talked about on this with our insurance safety deal. I would entertain we let him go ahead and do it. It should help us on both fronts. Yes, ma'am.
Just speaking from my viewpoint as a part of the council, I would like to add my 2 cents into how important I feel this safety training is. I'm not quite aware of the scope of what Adrian has given you and proposed, but to go along with, the safety meeting that Bill Wilson called because
For the insurance, yes.
Yes.
That's what I was saying.
Clearly, I worked in industry all my life, and it's just of paramount importance that we set up some kind of a regular safety training program for everyone. It's because there are constantly new hires. Some of us oldies understand safety issues and, that it needs to happen, but not everyone does. And so, just from the simplest thing like heat exposure to a tornado drill to things certainly much more serious.
It's like the evacuation of the courthouse. If you had to evacuate, do we have an evacuation plan?
There's a few little pictures here, but I think we can improve upon the program. Adrian is offering to set something up that I think is extremely important for all the county employees. Thank you.
You need a motion?
Yeah, let's have a motion second round.
I'll make a motion that we allow the EMA director, to set up a meeting with department heads and elected officials in reference to a safety committee coordination plan. Is that okay, Adrian?
Yes.
Second.
Then moving second, we have Mr. Ellis establish a safety committee to meet with the employees of the courthouse. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
No 7 o'clock in the morning meetings.
Nay. I don't have 7 on my alarm clock.
I don't either.
The issue that Frank brought up about ADA is the timing's incredible. I'm starting a special needs research throughout the county that looks at different disabilities and looking at them in an emergency scenario about how to deal with them. Once we have that, we will add that to a layer. Commando training that identifies those things and how those people are located and start writing them into the plan. And if any part of that I can do to help with the ADA, I have some history there. In fact, I'll tell you something that'll kind of shock you. But along with that, task force, we've completed exercises. We had an exercise Saturday at Ball State. Ball Memorial Hospital, the 181st Air Wing was there. St. Vincent Hospital, PHI Medical Helicopters, Pike Township, training is ongoing. We benefit from that because the task force is more aware of Fayette County. Our low power FM license is moving on. Because the government shut down, that pushed us back until the 14th of November. That application was a lot bigger than I thought it would be. And my goal is to finish that by Friday and get that in. We also have to look at special needs, the different languages that are starting to flow through the county. There are a lot of ways to communicate with people, and that's one of them. That's something that we can address with the low power FM radio. The other thing's been going on, local agency has been supplying logistics data to the hospital, Fayette Regional Hospital. Been working with the Children's Bureau, did a facility training there to help them with that, and participated in the Children's Festival for safety and security, and also was asked to join the school safety team at the high school out here. I supplied them some critical facility analysis tools. But basically, there are a ton of things going on. There always are. My apologies for not getting in here sooner and giving you an activity report. This is about half of what's been going on. And something we need to get back to is, I received, did you get documentation from the FEMA people about the meeting we had in April? They came down, Jan Kreider was here. I just got a disc from them, and I'm going to talk to Bill McDaniels about that. I know you.
Yeah, I hope so.
And my long-standing issue, especially now with the low power FM station, is getting back to some issue to deal with that tower site, because other problems have come up. We just need to get a handle on it. Just had a disturbing issue with the 800 megahertz radio system, trying to get that reconfigured, that if people don't get it done, they're susceptible to a $10,000 a day fine. And I, as the EMA director in every county is the administrator for the 800 megahertz system. And we can't have people playing with that because the state's getting upset. But
what kind of problem were you talking about?
We had, first we had rebanding, which they came down and had to make adjustments in all radios. Then they came through for what's called the second retouch. Motorola bought 4 frequencies within that band. They're going to use that commercially for the cell phones and the tablets and stuff. I was contacted by IPSC, who is the controller over that system. Being the administrator, I had to make everybody available, contacted all departments to get their radios in. Technicians come down, do that change within the software of the radios. The other side of the fence is I made arrangements for another group to come in. The technicians sit here all day waiting for them. They never did, and a particular department head took it upon himself to reschedule. He has no authority to do that. It was done, but this community can't afford $10,000 a day fines.
Right.
And it's not their authority to do that. It's not who's big frog in little pond. It's getting things done, getting them done right, and saving money, and trying to stop any unnecessary moves. So that tower site is working itself into it more and more, and I put proposals into you about how to deal with that. And we need to start looking at that. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
If you don't mind, we're going to take about a 5-minute recess, come back and finish this up.
Let her roll down.
Let's go ahead and to call the meeting back to order.
Call Cindy Hart first. Mark.
Cindy,
Yes.
did you want to talk to us?
No, sir, I'm just here to support Amanda.
Okay, well, let's talk to Amanda then.
Okay, well, I'm Amanda Workman with Purdue Extension. I've been here about 3 months already. And then you guys have asked me to talk about the chicken manure facility. So I made a couple phone calls and I have a Purdue publication, and then I also talked with Matt Pearson from IDEM. And he gave me a summary of the restriction. Thank you. And then his contact information is on the very back page of the packet. If you have questions about all the regulations and stuff.
Okay.
And then also, there are some facilities in Randolph County that are very, very similar. I didn't know.
Storage facilities? Manure storage facilities?
Yes, sorry, yes, in Randolph County. I didn't know if you wanted me to arrange a tour, maybe go see one of those, or if that's any of interest for you guys.
I might get with you and do that, just because it's...
Well, to start with, it boils down to what authority do we have to address these issues. From what I've heard of some of these meetings, the county commissioners really have no authority to say yes, no, or
Otherwise indifferent.
Otherwise indifferent. I mean, if, you know, is in fact the case that the state really regulates these and what they can do and what they can't, and we have nothing.
Well, I believe it's just Wayne County that they have the authority.
Well, something related to that is that when it comes to structures, this has to do with state regulations as far as the permitting, and then also with the storing, and then also the use of fertilizer. I suspect that's pretty much all that they told you what the state regulates. Now, you do get into, when you're dealing with buildings and structures, you do have zoning authority and building code authority. But what it comes down to is that, well, so far I found only one jurisdiction in the state of Indiana that regulates satellite structures, but it's Wells County, and all they regulate are lagoons and the open storage.
Is what, Bill?
Lagoons and pits that
Okay.
are in the open. They require that they treat those the same way they do to the point system with as they do with their confined feeding operations. I asked a question about what about structures? Well, if someone's going to put it in a structure, they deal with it just as an agriculture accessory building. So now the concern I have, as that you mentioned, is number one, it's finding out what really the actual authority that you have.
That was my
then,
question.
That's the first question. And then what you can really do, what you can reasonably do, what's being done elsewhere. And as you were at that meeting, this is something that's fairly new that's been dropped onto into Indiana. These are satellite facilities, particularly with the poultry manure.
It's pretty much said at that meeting that the counties had no authority to regulate it.
Yeah, it's the storage and as long as everything is actually there along the lines of meeting the requirements of the state, is, for example, the storage of the state chemist office, which is, if it's more than 72 hours, and you can store it outside more than 72 hours, it has to have a berm or it has to be covered. But it has to be used within 90 days. So I think one of the critical questions that we would need to deal with is, what are we going to do if it's going to be there more than 90 days? And did that come up in your conversations?
That doesn't come under the state regulations?
It has to be used within 90 days. It can't be stored more than 90 days. So that's one of the list of the questions I have for the people from the state chemist offices. Well, how do you deal with this if someone keeps it out for more than 90 days? Which I suppose it's that manure hotline they're talking about up there. Nope.
Amanda, there are two questions that are really germane to this whole issue if you cut right down to it. the concerns of our citizens, and I'm sure some of those in Wayne County too, are, number one, how does such a facility in close proximity to their property affect property values? And number two, is the odor, even from a closed-in facility, is it on a windy day and or when the air is still and heavy, is it really as bad as what people anticipate? Those are the two questions that everybody, number one, that's what they're assuming, that the answer is negative for both of those. Okay, so do you know for sure from the Randolph County facilities, has it affected people's property values?
I haven't visited, I haven't seen it. What I've been told is it's in a remote location. But I think it would be wise for example, if we do arrange a trip, is like, I would actually like to go and see. I think Zane is both a county commissioner and also a plan commission member. But this would be to see how it's done in that particular location. And then this would be in the meantime as determining really what you can possibly do. And the other part of that question is, if you can do something, should you necessarily really do it?
What do you
Well,
mean
the
by that?
important thing is to find out first what authority we do have before we start getting concerned about it.
Which is why I would, most of the things I had in my little memo right here are going to be covered right there, which you see. So because that when it comes before the county commissioners, that we know the petition's going to come forward, that without any specific action on the commissioner's part, it's just forwarded then to the consideration and the research on the part of the area plan commission. Because that's like I said, I really don't know what the constraints are, and those are questions that really need to be asked. And because when you look at, if it's more than the 5,000, an enclosed structure, if it's more than that 5,000 cubic feet of dry manure, it does need a permit from IDEM. Now, the question I have is, I'd like to find out from IDEM, but they don't have rules, they haven't adopted any written rules, is how would IDEM then take into consideration the construction of a structure for interior storage? As we talked about the other day, well, there's the issue of fans, what are you going to do? You have ammonia, have the hydrogen sulfide, and then you also have methane that's being released for the decomposition. So, does IDEM, are they going to have any type of requirements in place for ventilating the structure? So, I think...
I would suggest we let the area planning commission research and get the answers before, there's no need to fussing about it until we know what you can and can't do, what our responsibilities are.
And then as far as odor, there is a Purdue specialist who specializes in odor. I can get you his contact information if you'd like to talk to him about it more.
Give that to Zane.
That would be good also. Because I think one of the things we might want to do is, as we get more information on the plan commission's part, will probably be to, get some experts, not just from one particular perspective, but from a broader range of perspective, and talk about the various
So
issues.
what should actually happen is, she should actually come to the area plan meeting with the information and other stuff, and then maybe...
No, I think that'll be the one, then once it comes before the plan commission. I don't think we're going to, of course, November's too late. I think there's a strong possibility we're going to have the petition on the agenda for the December meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
So any other patients, concerns?
That lady,
About run out of people. Where'd she go?
she's gone. I don't know. Not back there.
Back.
Okay.
Corner back here. Come back here. Is that who you're talking about, the couple that were sitting back there?
Somebody wanted to talk to us.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Okay. No more patrons' concerns, need a motion to approve the claims in the payroll.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, claims and the payroll be approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. This time I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.